Hello and welcome back to Read the Book First, the book club podcast where first we read the book and the following week we watch the movie or TV show. This month, I'm very excited for all December, you guys. This month is the Percy Jackson Spectacular Month. Amanda is joining me all month to talk about all things Percy Jackson. Today we're discussing the book that started it all, Rick Riordan's first book in this world of heroes and Olympians. We're reading and discussing Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Before we get into the episode, obviously this is a middle grade series, but it does reference a lot of mythology, which has a lot of salacious and honestly just gross stuff happen that occasionally we do talk about the OG myths, so just be aware of that as we go through this month. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Thank you for all those that have been leaving reviews. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for this month, and I hope you guys are excited as well. Enjoy the podcast. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Janessa.
One day I will master the way to actually start these smoothly. But I don't know. And that's okay.
think it's very smooth.
Well,
Like
thank you.
popcorn.
Wait. You just diss me? I'm gonna call your mom. You're bullying me.
I could give you her number.
It's okay. Today, Amanda, I don't know if you know what I'm calling this month. December is the Percy Jackson Spectacular Month. So today is our first episode of the Percy Jackson Spectacular Month. Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
Let's go with that.
for those who do not follow me on Instagram and don't know the schedule, one, rude. Two, here's the schedule and the plan for December. This week, obviously, this episode, you're listening to it currently, is going to be focused on Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan, solely about the book. Today is book day. Next week on the 13th, we'll have an episode discussing the 2010 film adaptation of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, as well as a bit about the Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical, which if you have Spotify, I know you can listen to the cast recording there. And then our finale for the season, as well as for the Percy Jackson Spectacular Month, will be December 20th. And it will be an odd podcast because it's going to be late on Wednesday, because on the 20th, Disney Plus releases the first 2 episodes of their TV show, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, which I am so pumped about. And we can talk about that later. But the plan is, and obviously this has yet to happen. The plan is Amanda and I are going to watch the 2 episodes, then we're going to record a podcast, and I'm going to speed edit it and upload it on that Wednesday. Will it get up on time? Maybe. It might come out the 21st, and if so, it is a winter solstice miracle if it comes out a day late. That is the plan. So if you did not know that schedule because you don't follow my Instagram, go follow the Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast, because that's where I update schedules, because Instagram is easy to use.
Hey, some of us have Instagram and do follow the podcast and still didn't know all that information.
And I accept you guys because you give me that follow. It's all about the numbers.
Also, respectively, I don't have the brain for schedules. So, I've known the plan. Did I know the dates? No, not even.
That's okay. That's why you're the guest host for the Percy Jackson Spectacular Month.
Yes, I am.
And Amanda will be here a month to nerd out.
So y'all are stuck with me.
Before we dive in, what is your history briefly with the books?
With the books?
Yes. With this book specifically, but like the series, we get it.
I read them in 6th grade, just as the 5th one was coming out. I was really I feel kind of bad. There was this guy who in my reading class offered to let me read the book before him, but I got really, really anxious about the ending. So I insisted on waiting. And then I think he might have had a crush on me in retrospect. So oops. Sorry, bud. But then, so long story short, I read the series, got really into it. And then when the sequel series came out, read the first one and then didn't read any of them, and then had a renaissance of it recently when I got a concussion about 2 or 3 years ago. Um, and started rereading the series and reading Heroes of Olympus. I'm almost done. I'm on the last book.
It's exciting.
Yeah. I don't have a very exciting history because it's just like I read it and I really liked it, so I kept rereading it.
I mean, that's how we hope things go, right? So
Yes.
my history of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief in like fifth and sixth grade. So 2005/2006, I forget it was fifth or sixth grade, probably sixth grade, because that meant my brother would be in fourth grade. My brother did not tend to love reading as a kid, just, as some kids don't enjoy it as much. We were a family that my mom would try to read. We would have a book that we would be reading as a family. And for a while, it was whatever my mom and I would want to read, which happened to be like the Little House on the Prairie series, because my mom and I like those. But as Bo got to fourth grade, he did not care for any of the books that my mom and I wanted to read. I was more lenient because I like to read almost anything at that point, right? My mom, as I've discussed in this podcast before, does not understand fantasy. Like, she doesn't get the point of it. Like, this how the best way to explain it. Anyways, so she was searching and searching for a book that Bo would get into that we could read a chapter a night with. And the librarian, or I'm not sure where she found it, she found Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, and she read the first 2 chapters to Bo and I, and immediately Bo was hooked. So therefore it became our like nightly chapter reading book, until we got about halfway, and then I had to finish it, and so I stole it and I read it. And my mom just thought we lost the book, but I just stole it and just didn't tell her that I had it hidden it under my mattress so I could finish it late at night, because I wanted to finish it. Anyways, and that we finished the book right as The Sea of Monsters came out, so 2006. And so I read the series as they were coming out. I used to go to riordan.com and watch the countdown for each of the release, because they would have a countdown, like a seconds countdown. And I went to the midnight. We were on vacation when the fifth one came out, and it happened to be during the release. And there was a big bookstore, because the bookstore in Ketchikan doesn't do midnight releases in a small town.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I was able to go to whatever big bookstore, probably it was a Borders, probably back then. And I was able to get the last the last what's the last one called? The Last Olympian.
The Last Olympian.
Yeah. And it was like one of the most like dreamy experiences of my life, because my friends all went to like Harry Potter midnight releases, which in Ketchikan again was like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. releases, because small town, which I didn't go to because, again, my mom and fantasy. But because this series is the one that Bo enjoyed, my mom was like, yeah, let's go ham for it. and and so I loved it. I did not read the rest of the series as a kid. My brother read the Egyptian series. He really liked those.
Oh yeah, I did read the Egyptian series, and I liked the first one. But then I had a dumb thing that I don't know if we'll talk about, because it was a real dumb thing, and I decided I hated them all now for in 8th grade.
Yeah. And so my brother liked those. But I didn't read any of them, because then was in high school, and by that time I'd moved on to other books by then.
I did have the Demigod Files, like the little extensions that kind of came out shortly before the 5th one. I did have that one, and I read that. I think it was like a Christmas gift, and I got my family into it too.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the Heroes Olympus series that goes with the Percy Jackson series, like a companion series, I did not read until 2019, 2020, when we were going through it was 2020, 2021, because it was when we were teaching together our first year.
Yeah,
and I had all that extra time, because online teaching was just a mess. And that's when I first read through. So I've only read through those ones. But so I have not, but I was looking at Goodreads. Apparently I reread this book in 2015. So apparently I've read it at least 3 times.
Oh yeah. We don't need to talk about how many times I've read this book.
Yeah. I'm not I do like rereading, but I'm not an active rereader. Like, there's certain books that I've reread countless times, probably Harry Potter series, Pride and Prejudice, and that's it. But like other books, I've reread occasionally, but I don't reread all the time.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I like many things, read and reread and
as a
reread.
kid, I reread way more than as an adult, and that's probably because I only had a certain access to certain books, and I was like, well, I'm gonna read this now, you know. Did you, before we dive in, I forgot we didn't talk about this, and I haven't talked about this with you. Have you read slash heard anything about the Chalice of the Gods, the book that was released this year?
No, I wanted to finish Heroes of Olympus slash Trials of Apollo before I read any of them,
Okay.
but given my current speed of reading, it's going to be about another 5 years.
Okay. Another question. Do you, not me asking, Santa is asking, do you own a copy of that book slash do you want to own a copy of that book?
Yes, but also I still need to finish Heroes of Olympus first.
Okay, but
And
I
I
can still
also
buy you
don't,
the book.
yes, and then it'll,
That's what I'm insinuating, the Santa
oh,
thing.
okay. Yeah.
Unless you don't want to know what your Christmas present is.
I will probably forget that we've had this conversation
Okay,
because I'm
so
very good at
in a
intentionally forgetting
hypothetical
things.
world,
In a hypothetical world, I would like to have the book.
do you care if it's paperback or hardback? I think it's probably only
Not
hardback right now.
not really.
Okay,
If
sounds good.
Santa's listening, I'd also really like a copy of The Son of Neptune. I
Okay,
really liked that one.
okay. Our main character, Percy Jackson, has been kicked out of schools continuously, and he ends up finding out that monsters are chasing him, and he gets essentially sent to a camp called Camp Half-Blood. There he discovers many things about himself. He discovers that he
I don't know why
sorry,
you're like making it so weird. He
because
discovers
I
that
had wine. He
the Greek.
discovers that the Greek gods are real and his dad is a Greek god. Which god? We don't know. Also, there's a mystery. Something has been stolen. Oh no. That is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.
I wonder what it is based on the title. What is
Hmm.
the thing that could have been stolen?
It's very interesting. All
Very.
right. This book, immediately, Percy's voice is like so nostalgic. Like in the first chapter.
It's so funny. And like I know that like I'm a person who enjoys things the 17th time around, but
Mhm.
genuinely I still chuckle reading some of these lines.
Same. I was listening to the audiobook and I was just having a good old time. I mean, I binged it in 3 days. Like, good old
It's
time.
I think that's part of like the mass appeal. Like you were talking about your brother, like,
Hmm.
one of the things that's really great about these books is that they're super, super accessible. You
Hmm.
know, it's just really
Yes.
easy to read. It's got a good, quick pace. The narration's snappy and chatty.
Hmm.
Um, how'd you say his name again?
Percy Jackson or
No.
Rick Riordan.
Oh, okay. I've always said Riordan.
Okay.
Rior. Fuck,
Say it
Rick.
however you want. I don't know what's one's correct. I just like the way I say it.
I'm just gonna call him Rick because I
All
stumble
right.
over
Let's
his
call him
name.
Rick. Good old Rick,
Uncle
our buddy
Rick.
pal. Uncle Rick. Let's not say Uncle Rick. I have an Uncle Rick who actually sometimes listens
You
to the podcast. Hi, Uncle Rick, if you're listening. But
You
he
mean
doesn't
you
always
don't want to
listen.
have a weird parasocial relationship with an author who will inevitably disappoint us in some way?
Rick Riordan will not disappoint me. Of all the authors, I'm putting my money on him. I am.
That's never a good idea.
I'm doing it.
People are disappointing.
Yes, but I will put my money on Rick Riordan. He has a good track record.
Anyway, not the point. The point is he's really good at writing Percy's voice, and I think and I know this is like getting into later in the series,
Hmm.
but especially in Heroes of Olympus, it's really cool the way he manages to capture different characters and their voices. Um, because when you read this, I mean, at least I just thought that this was his voice and that's how he wrote, but it
Yeah.
really is just so uniquely Percy.
No, I agree. And it's especially because when I was reading the Heroes of Olympus, I did listen to the audiobook and it's the same person that does most of the audiobooks. I think there's a couple different narrators with the different characters, but even through the same narration, like Percy's voice is the same and it's still distinct and it's so familiar. But yeah, so we meet Percy and he is at school and he mentions he has his best bud Grover, um, who and him and Grover are constantly getting bullied. They're getting bullied by the teachers. They're getting bullied by uh,
Nancy Moffat.
Nancy Buffett, which the first in the narrative says Bofit, and I was like, is this Boba Fett? Like, is this like a Star Wars joke? Probably not. It just reminded me of Star Wars. But they're just getting bullied, and we're immediately on Percy's side. Like, he seems like a good kid who just reacts in ways that maybe
But
that's not how you should react.
you're
But
forgetting the iconic opening.
oh yes, what is the iconic? If you want to remind us.
The iconic opening. Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is close this book right now. Believe whatever lie your mom or dad told you about your birth and try to live a normal life. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. So yada yada yada. If you're a normal good reading this book because you think it's fiction, great, read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. Don't say I didn't warn you. There's more than that, but we're not going to listen to me read for 30 seconds.
It is a good opening.
It's such a good opening. It
is.
immediately captures your attention. And immediately it's like, hey, what's a half-blood? Who are you? Why are you warning me? Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. So him and his class are going to a museum. I forget. Is it the Met? I forget.
It's the Met.
It's the Met. They're going to the museum for a field trip, and there's two teachers with him. Mrs. Dodds, who is one of the teachers that's always mean to him at the school, and Mr. I forget his name at the beginning.
Mr. Brunner.
Thank you, Mr. Brunner, who is wheelchair bound and like Percy's favorite teacher ever. Percy talks a lot about all the crappy teachers he's had. Poor kid. But
he does cool stuff like riding on a chariot or like kind of vaguely evil stuff with like putting in pop quiz where all the answers are B.
Yeah, which
that's monstrous.
It is monstrous. As to people who are teachers / were teachers, I would never do that. I wouldn't do that. And that's something like maybe I would do if I was really mad at a class, but I wouldn't because I had test anxiety as a kid.
That would be a lot of work.
I had a teacher in high school who her tests would have patterns. But like they're very like so it'd be like A, B, B, C, D, B, A, B, B, C, D, F.
That's usually all I thought about when I was taking standardized testing on like the Scantrons is
Same.
like if it was going to be a pattern.
Yep. Same. Percy suddenly gets in trouble, and I wrote notes. I wrote notes to make sure I keep on track, but if I'm wrong, of course, I'm sure you'll correct me.
I will.
I don't remember what he gets in trouble for at this moment.
Oh, I do.
What?
So basically, they're eating lunch in the cafeteria. Grover and Percy are by themselves. Like Nancy Beaufort comes over and like dumps her lunch on Grover, and they're by the fountain. And like Percy swears that he didn't touch her, but like the kids are all sitting there and they're like, "What the hell?" Like the water like grabbed her in the background, but Percy
doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't notice that part.
Yeah, he like doesn't really know what happened. He just thinks that he got really mad and like fucked with her.
Yeah. And so
Mrs. Dodds like calls him into like this isolated room and is like, "Did you think you were going to get away with it?"
Before he has like the actual conversation with Miss Dodds, he's thinking in his head about all the different times he got in trouble and how it wasn't a big deal. And he includes one time where he turned in a paper he got off the internet and didn't get in trouble. Rick Riordan is out here not emphasizing the dangers of plagiarism.
I mean, yes, but also Percy's 12.
Yes, I would, or at least he can put like, which is like technically illegal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? He didn't say any of that, and I was just shocked.
Yeah. You mean this 12-year-old protagonist doesn't have a great sense of academic honesty?
Yes. I was shocked. No, I was shocked that Rick Riordan didn't like put in something else that made it seem like how bad it was.
But you also got to remember that this is like for kids. And I don't mean that in like a dismissive way. I mean that in a like, if you're a 12-year-old kid who's like struggles with reading and like struggles in school.
Yeah, fine.
And also like what kid is going to be like, I copied my paper just like Percy did?
Lots of kids. There are.
Okay, but are they gonna like come away from this story thinking the most important thing about it is that Percy plagiarized?
I don't know. I wrote it down and I still remember it.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, Miss Dodds is like
Is this how you
berating him.
feel when I get fixated on weird stuff?
Yes, all the time. But yeah, so Miss Dodds is like berating him about the situation.
Before that, there is a scene with Mr. Brunner where he's sitting there and he's like asking Percy all these questions about like Greek mythology and
Oh yeah,
like
quizzing
Kronos
him. Yeah.
and like he gets to a question that he doesn't know the answer to and then he's like, Percy, I expect a lot of things from you, but like blah 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 blah. And then poor Percy's like, I don't know what you want from me, man. I don't know what I'm doing half the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
then
then
Mr. Brunner's like, this is a matter of life and death. And he's like, okay, sure,
sure,
bud.
man. This is middle school.
And it includes the great line, he looked at the steel of the girl like he knew her. And I was like, that's some great foreshadowing. It really is. There's so
Yeah,
much great foreshadowing.
there is. But yeah, as he's dealing with Mrs. Dodds, how does the pen situation happen?
The pen situation happens. Miss Dodds like turns into something scary. Percy's like barely processing what's going on. Mr. Brunner runs in and like, well, like gallops in.
Hmm.
And says, "What ho, Percy?" and tosses him the ballpoint pen, and it becomes a sword like in his hand. Um, because he took off the cap,
Hmm.
and then he like kind of vaporizes the Mrs. Dodds on like pure instinct alone.
Yeah.
Gets
And then
hecka
later,
lucky.
yeah, and then later, as they're like either returning to school, or I forget if they're at school, Percy goes to Mr. Brunner and is like, "Hey, where's Mrs. Dodds?" And then Mr.
And
Brunner goes, "There is no Mrs. Dodds, never has been a Mrs. Dodds." And you're like, and then like the audience, like that's the end of the chapter. You're like,
yeah,
the audience is like, "WTF? What? What?"
poor Percy just gets gaslit the entire second chapter of this book.
It's
And like
true.
I was rereading it and I was like, oh, this is like low-key really sad because he's like going actually nuts
Hmm.
because he like knows this happened and everyone's lying to him and he
Hmm.
almost believes it, except Grover is such a bad liar that he's
Hmm.
like, no. And then he like goes in for his final exams and then is gonna ask Mr. Brunner for help. And then
But
he
yeah, his
overhears,
dyslexia is getting worse, which yeah,
yeah.
so Percy, and it's a lot in the first half of this book. um Percy talks a lot about how he has dyslexia and ADHD, and how it affects him in these like chapters 2, 3, and 4-ish.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, the thing that's kind of nice about this book that I think kind of gets underplayed sometimes
Hmm.
is a lot of um especially when we get to Heroes of Olympus, but that's a different story.
Hmm.
Is like the in this series, the fact that like all the demigods have ADHD and dyslexia
Hmm.
is never like dismissed or gone away. Like even towards the end of the book,
Hmm.
it's still something that Percy is dealing with.
Yeah, it's always there.
Yeah.
And it's never the like big like thing stopping his life or causing issues. It's just a thing on the side that like affects it, sometimes in bad and sometimes in good ways. Like,
Yeah. And like I remember there was an article I was reading in a magazine in the nurse's office in seventh grade. And like
sorry, the
the
specifics. Sorry. Keep going. I will think about the specifics to myself.
and they were talking, the article was like talking about the difference between Diary of a Wimpy Kid and like Percy Jackson and like the pros and cons. And they were pretty annoyed about the fact that they felt like it was super weird to sort of have that's not the I'm not going to say it right, but they thought that it was such a like nonsense take to be like, oh, if you have dyslexia and ADHD, you're a demigod. And
Hmm.
like, but I also feel like they don't really get the point because that's kind of a fun little power fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously I don't have dyslexia or ADHD, so I'm not maybe the best audience of this, but
Yeah.
like,
I don't know. Like, I think if you're thinking about it as like an adult thinking about a fantasy world, like, then yeah, it's weird that every single person that has ADHD and dyslexia in this world is also a demigod. That is a weird statistic, right? but also you're like, but this is a middle grade fantasy, like urban fantasy series about what if the Greek gods were in America. Like there are so many other issues with that setting if you want to dissect it as if it is like fancy hoity-toity high fantasy or sci-fi, you know what I mean? Like, so like I understand probably that person's perspective in that way, but it's in my opinion a silly way to try and break this book down because it's not the point. It's not to create the coolest world.
Also,
I mean,
arguably, I'm gonna quibble with something you say because God forbid I ever not. Um, like technically they don't say that every person with dyslexia and ADHD. They just said that all demigods have
that's what
this.
I meant. That's what I meant. I just
It's a
didn't say
very
it.
important distinction.
Yeah, but I mean, still, just the point still stands that like if you're looking at it, this world from that point of view, then statistics, that's like it's odd.
Yeah,
Right?
it is odd.
But that's not the point of the series, and exactly what you were saying earlier. Like I think it is very cool the way he uses those two things that many kids deal with, many kids are bullied for, many kids like and people
Struggle
their
in
whole
school.
life struggle in school. Like, and it's not, and like Percy struggles in school, but Percy is still, I mean, yes, he is rash in his decisions, but he's still a very smart, wise at points, some points not so much because again he's 12. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like, oh, I have good instincts and that's it. It's like, oh no, I can figure out puzzles, I can, do all these other stuff too as we go through. So yeah, so anyways,
Percy's just such a fun character.
he is.
Because there's also like a certain level of self-awareness. Sorry. So he like gets expelled from the academy because his dyslexia is getting worse. He fails all of his exams. And there's like a really sad part, like in the second chapter. The whole second chapter just made me feel really sad. But the biggest one is he like takes his exam that he knows that he failed. And like Mr. Brunner like is like, maybe this is for the best, like maybe this isn't the place for you, and like yada yada yada. And then Percy's like, oh, okay, so the guy that believed in me the whole time is now saying that I don't belong here. Great.
Yeah. Poor Percy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so as he's getting kicked out, he's going back to New York for the holidays or for the end of the semester. For summer, whatever. I always forget what time of the year it is. I guess summer has camps, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so Grover is also going to New York with him, also got a ticket. And they're on the bus, and Percy keeps describing Grover as being so nervous, like looking
like
over his
so
shoulder,
jumpy.
like jumping at every word Percy's saying. And on their way there, the bus breaks down, and it breaks down right next to he sees on the side of the road 3 old ladies knitting one sock. And then he sees one of the old ladies,
an electric blue sock.
He sees one of the ladies snip the yarn, and that's kind of like where the chapter ends essentially, and it's just odd, right?
Yeah, I know this is like vague spoilers to the end of this series, but honestly, that whole thing is such a fake out.
Yep. Yes. But he gets home and we meet his mom, Sally Jackson. This woman deserves the world. Sally Jackson is a top-notch book mom. I love Sally. She's a single mom who has 2 jobs, who loves her kid.
She's not single, which is half the problem.
But that's the joke.
Oh.
That's the joke, is that this the Reba song. A single mom. Like that's the vibe she has. She's like just trying to do the best she can for Percy. Like that's her number one goal. She is a top-notch book mom. But yes,
she's amazing, and we stand her constantly.
We stand Sally, but Sally does have a husband who is the worst with a capital W.
Capital T too.
Yes, if you'd like a stylistic choice. But Percy calls him Smelly Gabe. His
name is literally Gabe Ugliano.
Yep.
And it's like, damn.
Yep. Riordan was like, no one's gonna get past this one. But yeah, Gabe is constantly playing poker with his friends, has a like yelling at Sally to make him 7-layer dip, hates Percy. Percy
Mhm.
and him are constantly butting heads, and he obviously smells, and it's just like a really awful situation, and part of the reason why Percy doesn't live at home. Because
And like the first line that comes out of his mouth about Gabe is he called it one of the like describing lines is Percy says he called it our guy secret, which meant that I didn't tell my mom and he didn't punch the lights out of me. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, cool,
So
great.
yeah, so this guy is like giving off abusive vibes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his mom comes home and it's just immediately like welcomes Percy and is the sweetest, and I was like, hey, let's go to Montauk, to the cabin that we used to go to when you were little. Like, let's go ASAP. Like, and then of course Percy's like worried, like, what about Gabe? He needs that dip, and like, isn't he gonna miss that? Or he's like, if I make this dip, then he'll have enough leftovers. We'll take his car. Let's go to Montauk. And so they go and they do that. They take Gabe's car, they go out to Montauk,
Oh,
and
there's also a really great part where Percy does like the warding off evil gesture that he saw
oh,
Grover
Grover
do,
do, yeah.
and it hits like and the door like shuts Gabe in the butt. It's great.
That's fun. Yeah, so when they get to Montauk, they're in the cabin and Sally fixes all blue foods because there's this thing that one time Percy was talking to Gabe about blue foods, and Gabe was insisted that there was no such thing as blue foods. So Sally made a point of making um everything blue once. And so it's like a little tradition that they have blue food, and they're sitting there and they're just like this just like having a good like father or mother son time. And suddenly it's like the storm starts to get a little like the weather starts to get a little stormy, and someone shows up to the door, and it's Grover, who is like panicking and talking about they're coming or something like that.
Yeah.
And Percy looks down and realizes that uh Grover's feet are hooves,
Yep.
and the chapter ends. Dun, dun, dun. There's a lot of
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
cliffhangery chapters in the beginning of this book. Later
Yeah.
on, not so much, but
Yeah.
in the beginning, there's a lot of cliffhanging chapters.
Yeah, because they're trying to build that mystery and suspense. And,
Mm-hmm.
the first chapters are critical to reader engagement, statistically.
Yeah.
I've definitely done statistics on this.
Yep. You, just employed statistician. Anyways, so like immediately Sally is like understands what's the panic and why the panic's happening. She's like, okay, let's just get in the car, you guys. Where Percy's like, wait, Grover, you're here? Why are you here? How did you know we were here? What is going on? Right. And they suddenly see they're getting chased by this big animal that looks like a bull, and Percy keeps calling it a bull. And they get in the car and they're racing towards somewhere. And it's somewhere I think Sally, you can correct me, but I think Sally talks about somewhere where Percy will be safer, is like what she
Hmm.
says, right? Just does
And
Grover
it also
explain?
reveals, they
Sorry.
also reveal that, like, Percy's like, wait, do you two know each other? And she's like, well, I knew he was watching you, but I have never actually met him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's part of that program that your dad was telling me about. And he's like, and Percy's like, wait a minute, my dad, who I thought has met me and you said has never actually met me,
Mm-hmm.
talked to you about a summer camp.
Yeah.
They don't really explain that much. It's more
Mm-hmm.
just like, we got to
A
get you
summer
here.
camp. Yeah.
You got to get you here. We got to get you here. You're going to be safe there. And then,
Yeah.
like,
So they get there. Does the car break down and they have to run, or the
it
road
gets
runs out?
exploded by like
Yeah.
lightning.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It gets exploded. So they're out of the car. They're running, trying to get through up this hill. And Sally, who we love, is like, y'all keep going. I'm gonna distract the bull. Like, and she's like taught or showed Percy once how to like dodge the bull essentially once. And so
Yeah,
they're
well, she also is
mhm,
saying, I can't cross this barrier, so I
mhm,
can't come with you.
yes.
And
Yeah.
Percy's like, that's nonsense. I don't care. You're coming with me, because he doesn't
Yeah.
understand the whole anything.
Situation.
Because no
Yeah.
one has taken 10 seconds to explain to this
Uh-huh.
child
That'd be
anything.
too easy. And so Percy and Grover are running and running, and Percy looks back and he sees the bull charge his mom, and his mom puffs in smoke. Or not smoke,
No,
sorry,
no,
in
sorry. So
golden sparkles.
She tries to dodge him, and the bull
Mhm.
captures her, holds her up, and she disappears into golden
In the
light.
golden light, yeah. And Percy is pissed off, of course, and so he instead of running up the hill, he decides to kill this bull that is after he just what he presumes who just killed his mom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Does he kill it with a sword?
Oh, so Percy breaks off his horn and stabs him
And
with
then there's
it.
something with the horn. I go like because I'm like, how did he get the horn? Either he broke it or he sliced it off, right? Yeah.
Well,
So
he just let him like ram into the tree and took the horn
and took
off
the
of there.
horn and then stabs him with the horn, and then
Mhm.
the bull disappears, but not in a golden light. It like poofs kind of in a weird
Poofs in
way.
the dust.
Yeah. And so him and Grover take the horn, or maybe no, he passes out, right?
Yeah, he
He
passes
passes
out pretty
out.
much.
Yeah. So then he passes out. And the next chapter, he wakes up from a coma, and and like he as he's like waking up from a coma, he hears a few voices. He hears a girl's voices. Hears Grover's voice, like just like kind of in a like woo woo kind of state.
Hmm. And then a girl's voice,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
he thinks that she looks like a princess.
yep. Um, and he wakes up, and then Grover's there, and he's like, oh, like he figures out like Grover's what they call a satyr, like half goat, half person.
Hmm.
Um, and
He
then
has all these really weird dreams, including a really cool
mhm,
one about a horse and an eagle like fighting.
yeah,
Um, I love like I know it's like kind of cliche and sort of like lazy foreshadowing, but I really do love all the like magic touches like with the dreams and like the I just
it
think it's cool.
it is cliche, but also it is accurate to how many myths are. People are like, I
Yeah.
had this dream, and then it happens, right? So
Hmm.
like it checks out. And then um yeah, so he's waking up and he's talking to Grover, and Grover's kind of explaining barely, but it's like, hey, let's go talk to Chiron and Mr. D. They're waiting. And he's Percy's just like, what? But then he has the first description of Camp Half Blood, which I really like. So he says, we must have been off the north shore of Long Island because on the side of the house, the valley marched all the way down to the water, which glittered about a mile in distance. Between here and there, I simply couldn't process everything I was seeing. The landscape was dotted with buildings that looked like ancient Greek architecture, an open air pavilion, an amphitheater, a circular arena, except they all look brand new. Their white marble columns sparkling in the sun. And he continues on, but he's talking about how there's kids and satyrs playing volleyball. There's people in the canoes. Everyone's wearing bright orange t-shirts. There's
Hmm.
archery. There's horses with wings. Like this is the part. This is like equivalent, right, to Harry and getting in the canoes to go across the lake to get to Hogwarts. Like this is the first time we're seeing Camp Half Blood, and like as a kid, it is so like this is the coolest summer camp I'd always would want to go to. Right, it has every single um normal summer camp thing like volleyball and archery, and then some things that are like a fighting pit, what like a coliseum, like full out, like it's just so cool. And like we later on in the series you get more and more pieces of Camp Half-Blood, but every time they describe Camp Half-Blood and how the system and set up, I love it. I find it so much fun.
Hmm.
And it's not like the most detailed, right? It's like there's some cabins and they're in Greek architecture. Okay. Like specific things obviously that are important or detailed, but I really enjoy that. But he goes and they
Those are like you know how like I've talked about to you before specifically how when I reread things I like get up more details.
yes.
Those long descriptions are things that I like the
Yep.
first time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Um and then this chapter has a lot of good like the characters we meet have really good descriptions too that I really like. But they go out and
They meet
Percy
Mr. D.
Mr. D, in which he describes Mr. D as a man who was small but porky, and he looked like a cherub who turned middle age in a trailer park. Is
Yep,
how he
he looked like
describes him.
and then the line that I just read was the he looked like he would fit right in at Gabe's poker games,
Yep.
except I have a feeling that this guy could outgamble even Gabe.
And so we meet Mr. D, who immediately is just grumpy and just could care less, right? And then he looks over and he sees someone who they keep calling Chiron, and he's like, "Oh, it's Mr. Bruner at this camp. What?
Wild.
What is going on?" Does he realize that he's a centaur yet? No, that's
No,
a little
that
bit
happens
later.
at the end of this chapter.
Yeah. So he's talking to Mr. D and Mr. Bruner, who is now apparently Chiron, kind of like enter like the basics of Camp Half-Blood. And then he looks over and sees a girl, and this is her description I really liked. A girl probably my age, couple inches taller, athletic looking. But then he talks about that what I thought a stereotypical California girl would look like, except for her eyes ruined the image. They were startling gray with storm clouds, pretty but intimidating too, as if they were analyzing the best way to take me down in a fight. And that's his first description of Annabeth, who I love Annabeth, right?
We all love Annabeth. If you don't like Annabeth, we're talking about the Heroes of Olympus.
Huh? Oh, gotcha. You are talking to them about it. Gotcha. I misunderstood. Okay. Yes, Annabeth is amazing. I love her. But so we meet these three characters, and
I also love, sorry, a reoccurring theme in this chapter is like Percy being like, "Oh, you mean the Minotaur? Oh, what's your name? Oh, Zeus." And like everyone being like, "Please stop saying the names.
Stop saying the names. Names have power."
Percy just continues to be like, "Nah, fuck that."
Which is like, it's the whole book is like that.
Yeah.
Every single time they all, and it's like it's very much Harry saying Voldemort and everyone going, right? It's very much that same vibe, but like funnier.
Yeah.
And less like, oh no, you're gonna get killed immediately. It's, you know,
it's more like everyone being, it's also, it just really is a fun sort of like character detail.
Yeah.
Where like with Harry Potter, it always just felt like it was Harry being too dumb to like know any better. But with Percy, he's like, I'm not gonna do that. That's dumb. And he's just being impertinent. And it's great.
No, it is great. But yeah, we start figuring out the bits of Camp Half-Blood, and we find out Mr. D was Dionysus, the god who was banished for something that he did bad. I forget at this point. He's been punished a lot over the years.
He didn't even do anything that bad. He like dated / maybe seduced a wood nymph that Zeus wanted to date.
So like, normal Greek god stuff.
Yeah. So he got like punished by being sent here.
But there's this bit in this chapter where Mr. D is because Percy's like, the science explains this. You guys are wrong, right? Like, it's not Greek gods, it's science. And there's this whole bit where Mr. D is essentially scoffing at stuff, and he goes, science. And then I'm like, is Mr. D a flat earther?
Honestly,
he's giving flat earther vibes. If you were a
Greek god, wouldn't you be a flat earther?
No, I'd be too busy to think about that. I don't know. He just gives flat earther vibes, which I thought was funny.
I also love the intent. I love the little piece in there where he's talking about as soon as he like figures out that he's Dionysus, like Percy's talking to him, and then there's this little bit where he says Percy says he turned to look at me straight on, and I saw a kind of purplish fire in his eyes, a hint that this whiny, plumpy little man was only showing me the tiniest bit of his true nature. And then going on to see like all of the myths around Dionysus, like him turning sailors into dolphins, people going absolutely mad, like in the cult of Dionysus, and it was wild. It's like so scary.
Yeah. As the next two chapters are a bit info dumpy, which they're very enjoyable if you like world building, but they're a bit info dumpy as far as plot goes. Like,
I love them.
I love them too because I love the world building. But
though it is like really weird, though, like the emphasis on Western civilization. It's like, you know how you were like,
I had the same thought.
You know how you're like, Uncle Rick can do no wrong, and I'm like,
okay, he cannot do no wrong because here's why it's fine and it's balanced. It's because he has that imprint where he helps people from various different cultures around the world tell their myth stories in very similar ways to Percy Jackson and helps them get published, which would be very tough to get published. Like, he uses his platform to make these like myths of like smaller myths be known.
Yeah, and I guess like to be fair to him, that's the perspective of Chiron, someone who comes from Greek myths and is
Mhm.
coming from it. And like when you get into, I know you never read it, and I didn't read past the first book, but like the Cain Chronicles,
Mhm.
there's a very similar kind of vibe going with all the different gods, and
Yeah.
it's not just the Greek ones.
Yeah.
It's a continuous cultural bit.
Yeah. But yeah, and I've read a few of the
Also,
imprints that he's. Mhm.
love the point where he's like, Chiron is like, oh yeah, the gods are real, and Percy's like, wait, you mean God is real? And he's like, that's an entirely different matter.
That part is very fun.
It's
Um,
like as a kid, I was always like vaguely intrigued and like, so is God, like my God, still real in this world?
Little Janessa was like, no thoughts, just vibes. Which is
See,
the
look,
goal of most of my life.
we should talk about, we'll talk about this later, but remind me to talk to you about the Chronicles in a little bit.
Okay.
No,
Um,
the 13 missed clues. Sorry.
okay. So as they're Grover's giving no, Chiron's giving a tour of camp. And we find out that this was Grover's second chance at
Hmm.
essentially trying to become a keeper, which is all we really find out at that moment is it was a second chance, and that's why he was assigned to Percy. But
And the
Chiron,
only chance he's ever going to have to like do what he wants to do and become a searcher is if he successfully takes Percy on a quest. And he's like, and they're never going to let you leave. So, oops.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, well, there's 400 more pages. So,
yeah, something happens. Chiron brings Percy to Hermes' cabin, and it's like full of kids just doing a random assortment of stuff. But he specifically meets Luke, who is like described to be like 19 and have a big scar on his face. But essentially, the Hermes cabin is where the kids who are the children
unclaimed.
of Hermes, or they're currently unclaimed by a godparent, um have
Yeah, because
been
like
sent. They need
Hermes is the
somewhere to
god of
go.
travelers.
Hmm.
So that's his kind of vibe. Also, not that important, but also a little important. He figures out that Chiron's a centaur and the
Oh
wheelchair is
yeah,
just a cover.
yeah. So Chiron's a centaur, which is so cool. Which obviously we know because his name's Chiron, and if you've read a myth, you know. Um,
My favorite part is aren't you supposed to be dead? And Chiron's like, eh?
which is like again, if you're trying to think of how does this whole world make sense, the vibe of is the best way to get through it. If you think too hard, it breaks down so fast. You
Hmm.
just gotta go,
Hmm.
no thoughts, just vibes. Be like Percy, no thoughts, just vibes. Just go with it. Um,
Yeah.
so in this chapter, he also him and
Oh,
Annabeth,
then there's the thing in the
Annabeth and him,
farmhouse. Sorry,
yeah,
go back. I gotta go back.
to
There's
what?
the part where they're talking about like the farmhouse that they like were meeting at, and like Percy looks up and sees the attic, and he's like senses a vibe, and he like says to Chiron like, "Hey, what's up there? I thought something was watching me," and then Chiron's all like, "Not a single living thing lives up there,"
Yeah,
and it's like, "Oh, okay, that's very specific."
it is another little thing. But Annabeth and Percy are like in the bathrooms, and they meet Clarice, who is described to be huge, wearing like a triple X shirt because she's so muscular, and she immediately is like verbally fighting with Annabeth, and Percy's trying to like and like also bullying Percy too. And we find out that Clarice is the daughter of Ares, the god of war. Annabeth, I don't think we find out at this point who Annabeth's godly parent is, do we? It doesn't really.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But anyways, the three of them are arguing, and it gets so intense that suddenly the bathroom explodes mysteriously, and Percy is dry. And Percy's like, huh, that's odd. But then continues on. And Annabeth is like, in her face is like, I know everything that has happened, and I know all the answers to all these questions you are avoiding asking yourself. But anyways, I'm gonna give you this tour because I am following directions. And again, we love Annabeth.
And
Um,
no, actually, the other best part is she sees this happen and she's like, "I want you on my team to capture the flag."
yeah, yeah. um Chapter 7, again we get more info dumping about the world. So there is how many cabins, because I can't remember numbers.
12.
Thank you. I thought that, but I thought I was going to be wrong. There's 12
12
cabins,
cabins for the
one
12 Olympians.
for the 12 Olympians, and 3 of them are empty. The big 3, they call them Zeus.
4.
Hey, oh yeah, 4. Sorry. Well, the big
It's
3.
Artemis,
Yes, I forgot
Hera,
about Artemis. I'm
Zeus,
sorry.
and
I know you'd
Poseidon.
be upset.
Hades doesn't have a cabin. It's a whole thing.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. The next chapter is one of the funnest chapters, in my opinion, and that is the Capture the Flag chapter. Chapter 8. It is so fun. As a kid, I loved Capture the Flag. Have you ever played Capture the Flag in the Woods? Because it is so much fun.
I've never played Capture the Flag in the Woods. I was a city kid and we only played it on the fields.
You're missing out, dude.
I
Oh, I
know.
will say, falling into Devil's Club playing Capture the Flag, you don't even know what Devil's Club is, probably. It's in
No.
Alaska. It is the worst. Look up a picture of Devil Clubs right now.
Is it like the devil's is it like the devil's
You look at
marble?
it and you're like, oh, dinosaurs ate this.
Devil's Club?
Mm-hmm. And then Alaska, just so it makes sure this is the
Claw
right one.
or club?
Club. CLUB.
Oh, that looks fucking cool.
It is so cool. And actually you can like you can harvest stuff the solve to make a lot of really cool stuff, and it's being used right now in science to possibly help with cancer treatments, but it is spiny as fuck and it hurts so bad if you touch it and not wearing protection. And also if you're playing Capture the Flag in the woods as a kid in Alaska and you fall into a big patch of it, because the leaves in Ketchikan, no joke, this big, they're huge, it hurts. Anyways, I love Capture the Flag.
I did
And
too, but I only ever got to play it on a field.
yeah, it's too easy. That's too much tackling.
There was no tackling. We weren't allowed to tackle each other. I found a dead bird once on the Capture the Flag field. That was a little traumatic.
That's so sad. Anyways, so Capture the Flag is, as any solid summer camp, Capture the Flag is a huge event at Camp Half Blood. We have houses of campers making alliances with each other, trading deals for like, hey, I'll do your chores if you alliance with us, etc., etc.
You get extra shower time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I as a kid, I remember this chapter. So like of this book, there's like 3 parts I remember very detailed, and this part is like one I remember in detail. So they have Capture the Flag. Percy has been asked by Annabeth to be on Annabeth's team. Of course, Annabeth is the leader / captain of one team, and Clarice is the captain of the other, because of course the 2 female characters have to have rivalries, right, Rick Riordan? That hopefully will change later in the book series. Anyways,
To be fair to him,
I mean,
in this particular instance, I don't feel like they have a rivalry so much as they are just on opposite sides, because they don't have as much direct interaction with each other, which is a problem all on its own.
Yes, it gets kind of fixed later on in his other books, but in this book as a standalone, just saying,
does not pass the Bechdel test.
No, well, parts of it do.
Which part? Where is the part where female characters have a conversation that does not involve a man?
Medusa and Annabeth.
No, that does not count.
Why? They're talking about not killing, like how to. Okay, it's not a perfect pass, but it's an almost pass.
It lasts for like less than half a page, and it's mostly about Poseidon and Athena.
Again, it's fixed later on in the series. Like, yeah. So they are playing Capture the Flag, and essentially what happens.
Oh my god! If we want to talk about misogyny in Percy Jackson, can we please also talk about the fact that like Demeter's kids and Aphrodite's kids are portrayed so awfully? Mm-hmm. Like the whole thing that Percy says about the Aphrodite's cabin is that they're just sitting there giggling and like doing each other's hair and makeup. And it's like, oh, okay, cool.
And part of the thing with the big 3 not having kids is that because they're too powerful, but whereas their Aphrodite can have as many kids as they want.
Yeah.
Because they're never gonna, and they don't get chased by monsters. If you were like a kid of
Demeter, and like Aphrodite, I can kind of give a pass to, because she's not like one of the original 6. Like in some versions of like myths, she's not even entirely like an Olympian. She's like from Uranus, which arguably, which means kids should be more powerful because she's more on the level of Kronos. But you know what? That's a whole other conversation. The thing that makes me really angry is Demeter's kids being so underpowered because, like, Demeter is one of the like kids of Kronos. Why are her kids so unpowerful? This woman literally causes winter, and y'all are sitting here being like, "Oh yeah, Demeter kids so weak, can't do anything," and I'm like, "What is that? That's nonsense." It
It
makes me
is.
so angry.
I agree, just not as loudly.
You fix it in post.
No, Zoom totally like was like, it's too loud. I can hear it's gonna be a little quiet now. They're capturing the flag, or trying to. Percy is by this stream, and
He gets
suddenly
cornered by all the
the
Ares
whole Ares
cabin,
cabin comes
who
in
he did the
here,
bathroom thing with earlier.
which aka the water suddenly attacks them all, and Percy's like, this is odd. Anyways, and he gets wounded by a sword, and also suddenly his hand heals, and he's like, that's odd. And Annabeth's watching this, and he's like, hey, you used me as a decoy. She's like, yes, I did, because I am one step ahead, because I'm planning, because I'm Athena's goddamn daughter. Of course I used you as a strategy. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a hellhound comes into the woods. So with the world of the Camp Half-Blood is that monsters cannot cross the border unless they are summoned by someone already inside the camp, usually for like training purposes. So this is like a huge issue, because this should not have happened, because no one understands what's going on. Who kills the hellhound? Is Percy?
Chiron.
Yeah. So Chiron kills the hellhound because it's like an emergency thing. And as Percy is sitting there in the water getting healed by the river, and the hellhound is getting killed by Chiron, a trident appears overhead, and everyone screams, essentially, or large gasps, because this means that Poseidon has claimed Percy as his son, which, like we mentioned earlier, is a big boo-boo, because they had a pact. The big three had a pact to no more siring children.
But of course, Zeus also fell off the wagon. I know it's like a book for children, and some of the foreshadowing is like, but it's also like, oh, you mean that people who I'm fighting with keep getting attacked by water? I do better in a sword fight after I toss my water over my head. I like keep getting healed by water. I'm the son of Poseidon. Whoa.
It's for the kids.
I know.
But also, doesn't it make you feel like a little bit smart? You're like, I know what's gonna happen.
No, not really.
Oh, sometimes I like that.
I don't need foreshadowing to make me feel smart.
Well, aren't you special? I don't know what that means. Sorry. Anyways, so Percy now has an official cabin. He goes into the Poseidon cabin, and he immediately is so alone and estranged, because he finally found a world that accepts him for all of his issues that he has had in the past, and like embraces him fully. But now he's by himself. So immediately he's like, well, this sucks. Great. But he has a dream of Zeus and Poseidon fighting. Like, he has these dreams constantly throughout this book, but this is like the biggest dream since being at the camp.
Yeah.
And so the next day he's talking to Chiron, and Chiron tells him about the drama going on at Mount Olympus. So during the
winter solstice,
they were all on a field trip. The camp was on a field trip, or whoever was there at the camp at that point, at Mount Olympus. Because again, we didn't really explain this. Mount Olympus. Oh wait, this is later, huh? Where they describe.
Long story short, Mount Olympus is on top of
the Empire State Building. So Greece is on top of the United States, apparently, ancient Greece. So all the important spots, the godly spots, are now in the United States. So we have Mount Olympus in New York City on the East Coast. We have the entrance to hell and the underworld on the West Coast, with various important spots like not equidistant, anyways, around there. Chiron's like, yeah, so we were there, and when we were there, someone stole Zeus's lightning bolt, and it's a huge deal, and he's really mad, and we have to get it back there on the summer solstice, otherwise he's going to start a war. And the last time
he's accusing Poseidon.
He's accusing
Poseidon's like, nah, I didn't do it. But
yeah.
It's a whole, everyone's kind of getting into a dick measuring contest.
essentially. And because of all this, so Chiron's like, we weren't gonna, because you're now claimed and your dad is involved in this drama and being accused, we now have a quest for you, but you cannot go on this quest until you go talk to the Oracle. You have to accept it before you go to the Oracle. And Percy's like, yeah, I'll do it. Just again,
Mhm.
no thoughts, just vibes, Percy Jackson.
Well,
Not
he
always.
accepts it because they think like
Yeah.
you're giving him a lot of like crap for the no
I
thoughts
know.
vibes. But
He
he
thinks a
does have like
lot.
good reasons for doing things. Like he agrees
Absolutely.
to this quest because he thinks his mom is in the underworld and they
Yep.
think that Hades is the one who like
Who stole the
stole the
lightning to
lightning.
start the war because Hades has a lot of reasons to not like his siblings and to be jealous
Yeah.
from an outsider's perspective,
And he
right?
would have been on Olympus on the winter
On the
solstice.
winter solstice because he's allowed up there on solstice days. Anyways, so Percy says, yes, I'll do this mission. He goes upstairs to that creepy attic, which Amanda mentioned earlier about Chiron gaslighting Percy Jackson about it not being there. And he meets this creepy oracle. I love the oracle scenes.
Who's literally mummified.
Yes, it's so creepy. So here's the prophecy told to Percy from the oracle. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. You shall find out what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend, and you should fail to save what matters most in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So Percy hears that and immediately is like, oh, this is not all good. And everyone in the world who's ever read a myth is like, duh, Oracle gives you bad news usually.
Yeah.
Guidance with bad news. And so he goes down and he's like, hey, am I going by myself? What's the deal? And Chiron's like, no, you have Grover will go with you. This is his chance so that he can prove himself. And also Annabeth has already signed up if you'll have her.
And like
Percy,
ever since Percy's been claimed by Poseidon, Annabeth has been like really like salty about it
yes.
because like Athena, and she explains it a little bit later,
Mhm.
Athena and Poseidon have a pretty like historic rivalry, specifically over the city of Athens, and then
Mhm.
also just like
Just god drama,
just god drama,
just
like
Greek god
Medusa.
things. Yeah. And so they decide to go, and Percy makes a point not to tell the two of them or Chiron the bad parts of the oracle's prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
just to keep that to himself. Um
Yeah.
yeah, so there you go. And just a little moment, Grover has a reed pipe he talks about, and he talks about because he's a satyr and that's like part of the whole thing of it.
Nature vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, but Grover only knows two songs. He knows some Beethoven song, and he knows Hilary Duff's "So Yesterday,"
Yeah.
which I find fabulous.
You know,
Um,
Rick once said that Percy Jackson is as old is whatever, like it takes place in whatever time you read it in. And then I read that and I'm like,
mhm.
ain't no way.
Did you? Okay, question, Amanda. Or did you listen to the Princess Diaries book?
Not
Okay,
yet.
so want to hear some drama, little spoilers.
Yes.
Okay, so in my copy, my library book copy of the book, it mentions a Britney Spears CD.
Mhm.
And then the Kindle copy I got from the library, the same Kindle version license that Marissa got from the library, it got changed to a Hilary Duff CD.
Huh.
It was wild. We spent like 10 minutes on not really, it got edited down, but 10 minutes of real life time getting all our editions of Princess Diaries and like trying to figure it out. Wild stuff. But I thought it was funny that Hilary Duff came up again in this one. I was like, she
Oh, and
knows.
then it's so cute because like Grover tries to do like a nature finding song,
Yeah.
and then Percy's like,
It's
it
like
still
it
sounded
still sounded like So
suspiciously.
Yesterday, which is a good song.
It's a good
It's
yesterday.
a good song. Anyways, the three of them get on a
A
bus
bus to Los
to
Angeles.
Los Angeles. Um
We blew up the bus. I know.
and they're they're on the
Sorry, a
bus.
little spoiler to the musical.
Okay. Okay. That's a strong word for that.
I
Anyways.
don't know what you could consider spoilers.
Um
Anyway, sorry. So they get on the bus, and then
yes.
the Mrs. Dodds shows up with two other old ladies,
That
and they
look
blow
just like
up the
Mrs.
bus.
Dodds.
And they blow up the bus.
And they turn into harpies and they
Hmm.
blow up the bus. And the three of them run away by the skin of their pants. They escape the harpies.
And then,
And
and
they find
part of this,
themselves,
Percy becomes a fugitive.
yes. Yes. So
They
yeah.
find themselves at Auntie
Auntie
M.
M's Garden Gnome Emporium. So there's this place full of all these statues with creepy, like, people that look really realistic, and they keep going around. And Grover at one point is like, that satyr looks just like my uncle so and so, and they're
Uncle
like,
Ferdinand.
yeah, and they're all going through, and they're like getting creeped out, and they meet Auntie M, who comes out, and she's like, come in, I have food, and come in, and trying to like coax them in, and they go in and they're chilling for a while. Annabeth this whole time is sketched out. She's like,
No. Annabeth is like, food, that sounds great. And then Grover is sketched out.
oh yeah, because all
But then the more that Auntie M talks after
Mhm.
they're done eating, that's when Annabeth is
Annabeth
like,
gets
hey,
sketched
we
out.
need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
And Percy, like, who's like vaguely brainwashed, I think, is like,
yeah,
no, it's fine.
it's
It's
fine.
fine.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot to mention that Annabeth has this really cool hat. She has a New York
Yes.
Yankees hat that she
Turns her invisible.
turns her invisible. And right before they left Camp Half Blood, Luke gave a pair of shoes that can fly to Percy. Percy gave them to Grover to help hide his hooves.
And also because they had made a whole big deal about how, like, hey,
Percy can't go in the sky.
you can't go in the sky because that's
Yeah.
Zeus's domain, and he'll
Yeah.
like literally kill you. And Percy's like, hey, sounds good.
Sounds good. Here you go, Grover. Anyways, so they're chilling at this weird lady's place, and they realize really shortly, Annabeth realizes right in time that Auntie M is actually Medusa, and she like shouts like, close your eyes, and they all close their eyes in time so they don't get turned to stone. But they have this really cool like battle,
Yeah,
like running away through the maze. Like, this part is really cool. I enjoy, of all the like little mini adventures that they go on, this is one of my favorite ones.
that's because this one's like the best.
Yeah. And then because everyone like Medusa, everyone knows Medusa too, so as a kid
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I know this one. Where the other like references, you're like, I guess I've heard that
Speak
word
for
before.
yourself.
Okay, as someone who wasn't obsessed with Greek mythology, this is my introduction to Greek mythology. So besides like what I know from Disney Channel,
I guess
Greek mythology,
that'll be like a really interesting thing to like continue to talk about as we go further into the series.
they're able to eventually cut off Medusa's head
Yeah,
without getting
Percy
turned into
has to use
stones.
like a glass orb
Yeah.
to like help him look.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also really, really cool because kind of like this section of the book, Percy has a lot of resentment towards his dad. And
Mm-hmm.
like Medusa kind of taps into it, saying, like, hey, do you really want to be a pawn of the gods? Like,
Yeah.
do you think your dad cares about you? Like,
Yeah, because Medusa hates the gods because they turned her into this monster.
and the only one, and
Mhm.
she's like, I do have a fondness for your dad because he
Mhm.
was my boyfriend. And I'm like, oh, okay. We're going
Yeah.
with that interpretation. That's fine.
Interesting.
Okay. In all fairness, I did research on this.
Yes.
Um, the for lack of a better word, rapey elements were introduced by Ovid. Like, and there's no reference to that before then.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different sources on whether like Medusa was just born a Gorgon or if she became one. There's a lot of differing opinions on that. And Ovid also had a very strong, like, hey, we don't like authority in our stories. So he like made the gods in his tellings a lot more petty and vindictive on purpose.
Interesting.
Fun stories. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't, you know.
Before they leave Auntie M's after chopping off her head, Percy puts her head into a box and sends it to Mount Olympus to be like,
He's
F
being
you,
real
gods.
vindictive.
Yeah. And he also like
and then
steals a bunch of stuff from her office.
Yeah, he steals a bunch of stuff from her office, and it also, I referenced this line earlier, but I'm going to give it the due that it is. Annabeth's like, you can't do that. They're gonna think you're impertinent. And then Percy's like, I am impertinent. I want them to think that.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And like, that's the vibe of so many like heroes in myths, is like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna kill, I'm gonna steal and move on.
Mhm.
Right. And so this is like the again middle grade version of that on their quest, is that they're gonna go, they're gonna kill, they're gonna steal, they're gonna move on.
Well, and I think that's why I like Percy so much, is he's very like, he is like a good at fighting through things, but he's also a very Odysseus kind of character.
Yes.
Very like, a lot of times, even though he's not necessarily like book smart, he is really like clever.
Yes. In the next chapter, we find out more details about Grover's first mission. We find out that it was included Annabeth. So Annabeth essentially tells her backstory when she was like what 7 years old. Her dad remarried, and she thought her dad and her stepmom like hated her, and they
I
constantly
mean,
complained about her, which like they probably did complain about her, but like when you're 7, you don't have, even if you're the daughter of Athena, you're not going to have a true perception of the world, right?
yeah.
Totally.
Well, they also like that is something that was very smart in
Hmm.
Heroes of Olympus is he gave a little bit more insight into what
Yes.
exactly made her
Yes.
like get the hell out of there.
Yeah. So, anyways, Annabeth ends up running away from home when she's 7, and she meets up with two other people who are also running away, who are also had monsters chase and can see the monsters because humans can't see the monsters due to the mist that blocks them, whereas demigods can see through the mist as being half god. And when Grover was helping these two heroes, and once they got almost to Camp Half Blood, one ended up dying on that hill, which ended up being Talia, Zeus's daughter, and that's why there's that tree there at the top of
Hmm.
the hill. But this is where we find out all that information, like the full of it. And Percy has another dream here, and this one's creepy. Something from the underneath is talking to him, like he's
Hmm.
just having creepy dreams. They find their way to a train, and so just to recap, they were on a bus broke down, they ran, they got to a train. The train is headed to Denver, so they're on the train for supposed to be a 2-day trip. The train has a stopover in St. Louis, St. Louis.
Yes. St.
St.
Louis.
Thank you, St. Louis. And being the daughter of Athena, Annabeth is thrilled to get off the train and go check out the arch, because of course she nerdy is. And so they get on the elevator, go up to the top of the arch, and they're like, oh, this is awesome, and they're about to go back down. There's only enough room for Grover and Annabeth, and so they go first. Percy stays back. There's happens to be this older lady with this really barky chihuahua up there.
Hmm.
And so right when that Grover and Annabeth leave, that chihuahua and that lady get turned into a chimera.
And
Um
Echidna, the
and a
mother of all monsters.
and echidna. And he's like, isn't that an anteater?
And then she
And
goes
she's
on this
like,
little
I
rant. I
hate
hate Australia.
And anyways, there's a big battle up there, and to escape, he jumps off the arch into the river. And he survives because he's again the son of
Son of
Poseidon.
Poseidon. And then
Um
there's like a river spirit that comes up and is like,
he's
yo.
yo, meet me in Santa Monica. Your dad wants you to meet you at Santa Monica. He's like, okay. And so now that what the human population sees, a guy who was a fugitive for kidnapping a car and possibly
His mother.
the disappearance of his mother is now making explosions at the St. Louis Arch. So
In
they
addition
are,
to the whole thing with the bus.
yes.
And
So that's
Gabe is on TV talking about how much he misses his wife and son and like how he's always been a troubled kid and blah, blah,
Yep.
blah.
And they get back onto the train, and they're able to make it to Denver. When they get to Denver, they go to get food. They go to like some retro diner.
Mhm.
When they're in the diner, a guy on a motorcycle shows up and comes to their table, and immediately Annabeth and Grover know who this is. But it takes a second for Percy, like it has this whole time. Everyone knows what's going on, but Percy is 3 steps away, partially because they don't tell him anything, and partially because he just got thrown into this world, literally got thrown into the deep end, right?
Well, and also in his defense, he like doesn't understand like in defense of everyone else. They have this whole like names have power. We can't just go around naming things willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they name things willy-nilly, they'd be able to tell Percy, like, hey, that's Ares, but they don't
Yes.
want to name things willy-nilly.
Yeah. So this man ends up being Ares and is like, hey, y'all are causing up a lot of drama. Love to see that. Also, don't mess with me. I'm the god of war. Percy immediately is pissed off, hates this guy, like just enraged. And Ares is like, I need y'all to do a quest for me. And Percy's like, we're on a quest, bud. We're a bit busy. And he's like, too bad. You're gonna do this and I'll help you, I guess. And so he's like, you need to go to this abandoned water
Well,
park.
he's like, I have information on your mother.
Yeah, of course. You need to go to this abandoned water park and get this shield I left there. I was there with my girlfriend Aphrodite. And Percy's like,
Well, he doesn't say Aphrodite.
well,
He
because
says,
my
I was
girlfriend.
there.
And Percy later on is like, wait, isn't she married? I guess it doesn't matter. like Annabeth and Grover are like, it's fine. Like it's like a weird, they dismiss it. And obviously later we'll find out it becomes like it's an actual deal. But of course it's just, again, just Greek god things,
Well, it's also like literally all of them are products of infidelity except for Athena.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and Apollo because he doesn't have an actual girlfriend.
Again, just Greek god things.
Just Greek god things.
Just Greek god things. And so they're like, okay, let's go and do this so that we can get this information about my mom. So they go to this old amusement park and they have to go on the River of Love ride, and there's only room for two of them. So Annabeth and Percy go on there, and Annabeth has this whole thing of like, me on the River of Love ride with you, like occasionally. She's like, ew, boys, cooties, right? Which she does for the most of the series until later on, right? It's just like,
well, it's also like
12.
heavily implied that she has a crush on Luke because she like lets him get the capture the flag thing.
And I think in this chapter too, like Percy has that like, what would Luke or what would Annabeth think if Luke saw us here? Like, so like, yeah, so Percy's making fun of her too, like, so it's like it's fine. But they're going on this River of Love ride, and they're on this boat, and they see the shield,
and Percy like, goes to grab it, and
it sets off a booby trap, and all these cherubs like are actually cameras pointing at them. They hear a voice, they're like, live in Mount Olympus in 1 minute, and like it starts counting down, and they're like, oh, Hephaestus set up a trap. That's what's going on. He wanted to trap his wife cheating on him. And so they're able, with Grover's help, flying with the shoes, they're able to get water going into this river so Percy can water magic their way out. They're able to escape.
They reveal that Annabeth is afraid of spiders.
Yes, which of course makes sense. Daughter of Athena, Arachne. Yeah. Yes.
Did you know, and you may or you may not, this is a reference to a very famous myth.
This whole River of Love?
Yeah.
Which myth?
It's not that famous, but Hephaestus, once upon a time in one of the stories, trapped Aphrodite and Ares in a golden net and had all the gods and goddesses come over and make fun of them to get revenge on his wife constantly cheating on him.
Yeah.
So that's a reference to this.
Lovely.
Do you want me to break down every single mythological reference in this story?
I'm okay. I can go on Percy Jackson Wikipedia if I wanted to, or fan Wikipedia, whatever that page is.
But that's not my take, and I'm just more interesting.
Anyways, they escape the tunnel. I have heard most of them, Amanda, over the years of teaching. That's what I think. Anyways.
I was just laughing because we both said anyways at the same time.
Oh, I didn't even hear you.
We're doing this too much. Anyways. That's the same.
So they escape the tunnel and they go back to the diner. Percy is pissed because they set him up, and the guy is like, hey man, I'm a god, you gotta do what I say, like kind of vibe, like they're beefing still. But Ares tells Percy that his mom is still alive. So Percy was unsure. They assumed she was in the underworld, like, because she gold puffed, vanished, not died.
Yeah,
like humans do.
Also very importantly, they get him a ride like west
in the trailer with the sad zoo animals.
Yeah, I hated this part. I thought this was where they had the conversation about Annabeth, or not about Annabeth, about Talia.
Not according to my notes.
I believe your notes better than my memory.
Every time the chapter ended, I'd jot down what happened because otherwise I'd be lost. Anyways, so they're in this trailer getting from Denver to LA. The trailer has a tiger, a zebra, and a sad looking something like a gazelle type thing who he does not sure what it is. And
it has a balloon to his head.
Yes, it is just so sad. And like the three kids like help them. And Grover, of course, because he's a satyr, can talk to animals. So they make sure that the animals know, hey, we will help you as much as we can, which they do. They feed them. They actually get them water.
Percy can also talk to the zebra because Poseidon created horses.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And zebras aren't horses, but that's okay.
Yeah. And so they help the animals. When the trailer stops in Vegas, they end up letting the animals free because the humans driving them are just awful. But when they're in Vegas, after they set the animals out, they run into the Lotus.
The Lotus Casino,
which is I love this bit. It's so
Oh my
cool.
gosh, it's so cool.
It's so
I
cool.
like, you know how you were like, I really wanted to go to Camp Half Blood. I really wanted to go to the Lotus Casino because my toxic trait was thinking that I would not fall victim to the like memory curse.
Okay. Essentially, the Lotus Casino has every single activity that you could ever want. The person when they go into the Lotus Casino immediately gives them debit cards with seemingly unlimited funds so they can
Hmm.
eat whatever food they want. So they get food, they get a clean change of clothes, and they start like playing these games. They kind of get separated. And Percy ends up playing this game with this kid who keeps on saying the words groovy over and
And
over.
then Percy uses the word sick, like as in cool, and the kid looks at him strange, and so he finally is like, "Hey, what year is it?" And the
Yeah,
kid's like,
1970.
1978.
Yeah. And Percy's like, uh-oh, not good.
And then he
And
has like a scary moment where he can't remember his mom's name, and he's like,
mhm,
"Okay, we got to get the hell out of
yeah.
here."
So he's able to find Grover pretty fast and get Grover back on his like ready to
No, he
go.
finds Annabeth first.
I thought Annabeth was last because she was doing all the trivia, and I thought it was
No,
funny.
no, no. They found Annabeth first because she's doing like a she was doing like an architecture thing, and he snaps her out of it
Oh, the
by like
Sim
with
City
doing the
type thing.
spiders, by
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
her
yeah.
about spiders,
Yeah.
big hairy spiders, and
Mhm.
that snaps her out of it. And then they got to go get Grover, who's playing a deer hunter game where he gets
Oh
to hunt
yeah, where
hunters.
the deers get to hunt hunters. Yeah, I forgot.
No, this part is like seared into my brain, man.
It's the Lotus Casino just so cool, but they end up able to escape, and they realize when they get out of there that it is the day before the solstice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're in there for a couple of days. So they're like,
Yeah.
we need to
Ah,
get to
shit.
LA. So they get a taxi. They're like, hey,
Use
we
the
need
casino
to use the
card.
casino card, which gives this taxi driver essentially unlimited money.
And
Like,
he's like, "Oh, your princess, your majesty?" Like,
yeah,
'cause he's so
but
confused.
honestly, go for this taxi driver. I bet that hopefully it helped him have a good life.
Yeah.
Anyways, the taxi driver brings them to LA to the
Assuming
Santa
that they
Monica
didn't think that he
Pier.
was committing fraud.
True. I didn't think about that part.
I did.
Anyways, they get to the Santa Monica Pier and Percy just starts walking into the ocean. And Annabeth and Grover are like, wait, we need a plan. And Percy's like, nope, I have a goal from my daddy. I gotta follow his word. And so he goes and he can, like, of course, breathe underwater because, again, son of Poseidon. And that same spirit that came to him in St. Louis comes to him
The
now.
Missouri River.
And the spirit gives him three pearls, which the pearls says the pearls always return to where they come from. Um,
What belongs to the sea will always return to the sea.
thank you.
Specifically.
Thank you. Pacifically. Eh,
Specifically.
nice. Um, and so this for when they go down to the underworld, right? Because you can't leave the underworld technically. It's weird. Um, but he comes out of the ocean and he's all dry, and they ended up going into the Krusty's waterbeds.
Yeah. This
Which
was a reference to one of my favorite myths about this guy who like violated one of the sacred rules of hospitality and just straight up like would either stretch them to make them 6 feet or like chop off their heads. And that's kind of like the whole gist of the deal. Percy saves him.
so they're able to escape from Krusty's and they get to the DOA Studios, which is the entrance to the underworld. And I love the name DOA Studios because they don't really like, do they ever point out what it means?
No, they don't.
But like we all know it's dead on arrival.
I think honestly, I may have realized this before, but this is the first time that I've like remembered that that's what it meant and
Oh,
stood for.
same. Absolutely. Yes.
Then they
But
meet Charon.
Charon. Yep. Not Chiron. There's a whole
Don't
thing
get
about that.
confused with Chiron. With
Yep,
Chiron,
Charon.
it's
Yep.
Charon.
And they essentially bribe him to let him or let the three of them into the underworld. And so, and with like a promise that they'll ask Hades for a raise for Charon.
Hmm.
Um,
For Charon.
for
Charon.
the
Also, a
audiobook said
fun fact.
Charon, like Karen, but on.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I know, but you just pronounce it differently to yourself.
Well, that's because you said anyway, not the point.
I
Fun
thought I said the
fact.
same thing. Anyways.
Fun fact. When I was reading this in elementary school slash reading Greek myths in college. Sorry, in elementary school and like all these things. I thought it was Charon and Chiron and Thalia.
Same, because
Didn't,
that's how
yeah,
English works.
yeah,
Because Greek is silly.
yeah. I mean, at least Greek is consistent.
Fair enough. So they get down to the underworld, and then they meet Cerberus, the three-headed Rottweiler. I love Cerberus. And at first Cerberus is gonna attack them, but then Annabeth essentially wins Cerberus over with the ball and her dog training skills that she has from when she was a kid. So, yeah.
It's so
Um,
cute.
and then I said Percy says line 2898. I marked it. What does he say?
298.
Oh yeah. So as they're moving on, he says, even here in the underworld, everybody, even monsters, need a little attention once in a while, which has been a theme as the book's been going. It's one of those like now that you read it in retrospect, it's like the foreshadowing, right? Everyone they meet or every hero they like reference to talks about how the gods don't pay anyone enough attention, and then that people earn attention, like yearn for
Hmm.
attention, right? Now it's like the foreshadowing.
Hmm.
But yeah, so they keep on going. And uh is this the part
They,
with the shoes?
yes, this is the part with the shoes.
Oh, I
So they
forgot.
walk
Wait.
through
We
asphalt
forgot an
fields.
important thing.
What do you think?
Aries gives them a backpack of food, money, clothes.
Oh yeah, Aries
Important,
gives them a backpack of food, money, and clothes.
including Oreos.
Yes, they eat the Oreos on the um sad zoo part.
Yes. Anyway, so they're continuing down, and this is Grover's wearing the shoes at this point, right?
Yes.
And there's like a huge pit that they're walking by, and the shoes suddenly start dragging
Oh, they
Grover
also,
towards.
sorry, real fast. They also call Luke. They call Camp Half-Blood to like update them on some shit.
Oh yeah, in like St.
Um
Louis or somewhere.
Yeah, it might even be in Los Angeles. But Luke is the one that picks up the phone and he asks
Hmm.
Percy specifically about the shoes, and Percy's like, I felt guilty for lying, but I said that they were working great for me.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry.
But the shoes seem to be dragging Grover towards this pit, and they're able to save him at the last moment so he doesn't go into that last pit. And like,
And it's only because he has
mhm,
hooves. Otherwise,
yes. Otherwise, he would have been SOL. But as they're walking, like it describes all the different layers of the underworld. And if you're into Greek mythology, this part I'm sure is very interesting. As someone who does not care about this part of Greek mythology, I was like, boring, keep going. But again, that's my no thoughts, just vibes take on it. Um,
I like touching back on the like people who are actually into Greek mythology, what their feelings are about this stuff.
mhm,
I get like being like upset about the mythological inaccuracies, or more accurately, like people taking the stuff in this series and things like overly sarcastic productions
mhm.
as like the gospel over actual like literature.
Yeah,
Um, but at the same time, I think what they fail to understand is that this makes it significantly more accessible for people.
yes.
Um, and for me, as someone who's like not casually into Greek mythology, because we know that I don't do anything casually, um, but like not super into like all the like not an actual classics major.
Hmm.
I love seeing all these references to like Greek mythology and like seeing this thing being like, oh, that's a reference, that's a reference, that's a cool
Hmm.
reference. Like it makes me very happy.
Oh, I also love that. It's just that I just don't care about the underworld part of Greek mythology,
See, I care deeply about the underworld.
which I love for you. But anyways, the exciting part, they meet Hades, which is the part I care about, of the underworld. Um, so they get to Hades' throne
There's a
room, and
sudden heaviness
mhm,
in Percy's backpack,
mhm. You're
which they
like,
don't investigate at all.
yeah, well, because he's also like, it's as they're walking into the throne room, essentially. So it's like
Yeah. So
there's
he's
a lot
also
of
like
he's just
overpowered
overwhelmed
by
by the
Hades vibes.
exactly. Um, and they have this huge conversation, and Hades is like mad because Hades thinks that Percy came was sent down to like uh antagonize Hades instead of come to plea with Hades. Like they are both misunderstanding each other's purpose in this moment.
Because it's revealed that Hades lost his
Mhm.
helm of darkness.
His helm of darkness, which makes him invisible, is now gone.
Yeah.
And so
Well, not
he's
just invisible, like meld with the shadows and
yeah.
inspire terror. Because like if it was
Hmm.
just make invisible, it'd be kind of like, wait a second. So his symbol of power is the same as Annabeth's rinky dinky hat.
Fair.
Damn.
Fair. But yeah, so Hades is pissed off, but Percy's also like, "Hey, I want my mom back, and also I'm trying to like make sure there's no war. Like that's my goal here. I don't want a war." Right? He doesn't say it like that, but like that's the idea behind it all.
Well, and then it leads to a kind of fun part that I've always
Hmm.
enjoyed, where he's like, "Hey, Hades is like, why the hell would I want a war?" And then he's like, well, it'd expand your kingdom. And then Hades is like, did you see the backlog? I do not need expansion.
We
Are
are
you kidding?
overflowing,
We are
which
overflowing. I need
mhm,
budgeting.
yes, poor Hades.
And then Hades is like, I'm not welcome in Olympus. No one cares that no, I
Hmm.
didn't say anything because no one would care. And now Poseidon thinks that he's gonna frame me for his thing, and I've seen through it. Don't I want my hat back? I know you
Hmm.
have it, just like you have the Master Bolt. And then he's like goes into it and is like, I'm not gonna let you get out of here alive, and I have your mother, and like you have like
Yeah.
2 minutes to figure out what you're gonna do.
And
I've
he's like, I will
got these
unleash the
pearls.
undead if you do not return the helm.
Yeah.
Or and then he's like, and then after that, he's like, I'm gonna kill your mom if you don't return the helm.
Yeah. And he
And
knows about the
mhm,
pearls that did we mention the pearls?
yes,
Okay, yeah, he mentions the pearls and makes
it's
them
like there's
conceal
only
them.
three. You
And
have to
there's only
choose.
three, so like his friends are obviously
Hmm.
offering to give himself themselves up.
And so Percy
And
thinks about the prophecy and at the part about
mhm,
what wants to be saved is not saved at the end. He goes, okay, this is a reference to my mom, but in a good way. So we're going to take these three pearls and we're going to figure out the like rest of the situation later.
yeah,
Right.
because we
Like,
just got duped
mhm,
by the god of war, and
mhm.
he's trying to cause a war, and we're not going to let that
Because
happen.
what is in the backpack, Amanda?
The Master Bolt.
Da-da-da-da-da!
Da-da-da-da-da!
Magically, Percy has the Master Bolt, which was obviously placed there by Ares somehow. We're not sure yet. But so
I
they
also love in this scene how like Percy for the first time in his life is being vaguely respectful and keeps calling like him uncle and like
yeah,
all these things. And I'm like, damn, Percy, I didn't know you knew how to do all these
he's
things.
learning. He's learning. Look at
Is
him.
he
Look at our
learning,
boy go.
or is Hades just that scary?
Both. Both. But they crush the pearls and they have like bubbles that essentially surround them that takes them up and through the underworld back to the ocean. They get rescued by the Coast Guard, but the Coast Guard's very
Because there's like an earthquake going on, so
this
they're dealing
earthquake
with some
because
other
Hades
shit.
is so mad that he caused an earthquake. So yeah, so they're the Coast Guard does not even care. They found just three kids in the middle of the ocean randomly, but they get back to shore and Ares is chilling there, and he was like, you were supposed to die," and so this
Because
is where
if
we
he had died in there, like then
the well no
Hades still is missing his master helm.
the lightning bolt would
Zeus
be
is
sent back
mad.
to Ares because
No, no,
Ares
the lightning bolt would stay with Hades. So Zeus is mad at Hades because now Hades has his lightning bolt. Poseidon's mad at Zeus for like falsely accusing him and mad
hmm
at Hades for killing his son.
hmm
And Hades is mad at both of them because like now he still doesn't know who has his fucking helm.
yes, and
So it
so
causes a big
a
old
big
war.
war because of course the god of war
Wants a
wants
war.
war. And so Percy and Ares are arguing, and Percy's like, "Well, I'll fight you to keep this Master Bolt, essentially. And like, if we fight and I win, I keep the bolt, and you let us go free. If you win, then you get the bolt, and you can turn me into whatever you want." And Ares is like, "Bet you're a demigod. I'm a god. The
Yeah.
odds are not in your favor, bud."
Yeah. The fact that he wins this has always been like,
Yeah, they have a fight.
okay.
Percy wins, and like kind of a
To be
lame.
fair,
This fight is kind of lame, but they do fight in the ocean because Percy is
yeah.
smart about that.
Yeah. Percy gets him in the
Hmm.
ocean and fights him there.
Hmm.
And again, he just gets him off guard. And then there's also all these other distractions going on. And then I think, like, I just read it today, they imply that, like, Kronos makes Ares stop.
I don't understand how the battle ended.
I think like well they say that there's like a sudden cold darkness that and a like light washes over Ares' face and like I think the implication is a little bit I mean a smart like writer, and he is smart. I shouldn't say that. The implication that I got is that Hades was like a little bit like almost charmed into
Hmm.
sort of going along with this crap,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so maybe the charm was weakened.
or the charm wear off, or like Kronos
So
didn't
he
want
was
Percy
more
to
to his
die.
logical self.
Yeah, Kronos
Yeah,
didn't
I
want
think that
Percy to
makes
die.
sense.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's still kind of
It's
lame.
still ambiguous, kind of.
And then the Furies come up and they get the Helm of Darkness.
Hmm.
Um, and then
And
Percy has
then
to fly on an airplane.
because also important because Percy won, suddenly the way the humans see the situation is that Percy was kidnapped by this person, and it was this person who caused all the issue, not Percy and these kids. They were just kidnapped. So now Percy is like a hero in the human's eyes, or like a
Yeah,
survivor, right? Which is good because again, he has to go on the plane, and the whole time they're like, "Don't go on planes," and then he goes on the plane and is just stressed out and fine,
yeah.
which is
But it
like,
was also like Hades, Zeus was literally like when they get to talk to him, it's like, don't ever do it again, or I'm going
yeah.
to kill you.
Yeah. So they get to New York. Percy goes to Olympus up the Empire State Building by himself. He sends Grover and Annabeth back to camp to make sure that Chiron knows the truth in case Percy dies up
Yeah,
there. So they get up there again, like you just said. Zeus is still pissed. He gives Zeus the bolt, and Zeus is like, still like, I'm gonna kill you if you're in the sky, dude. He's like Greek gods are. Like, I don't care what you think. I'm gonna
well,
be mad and do whatever I want.
it
Like,
also doesn't help that, like, he thinks Zeus, being like a super paranoid individual, like thinks that Percy's some kind of plot by Poseidon to like overthrow him. So
yeah.
he's like, not a huge fan.
Yeah. And Poseidon, while in the throne room too, Poseidon,
Oh,
he's
so
there.
sorry. What I meant, what I was going with that is Percy like spent the whole time deferring to his dad before he defers to Zeus.
Yes.
And it's like, oof.
But like,
Also,
but
I also
Poseidon's
think we need to,
reaction to everything, Poseidon is kind of like acting indifferent this whole time. And
yeah.
like, and as Percy keeps going, you can tell that Percy is like, this is my dad. I'm seeing him for the first time that I can remember fully. And he's like a very like it's very minimal, but like it's still he's like letting him down slowly and slowly more. But before he leaves Mount Olympus, Poseidon's like, hey, like they have like a few minutes alone away from Zeus. They're like, hey, your mom's alive. One, nice job. Two, she's a god. She's a queen, is what Poseidon says. Your
Yeah.
mom is a queen. And we're like, yes, like we said, we stand Sally Jackson.
And then he also calls Percy a mistake to his face.
Yep. Uh-huh. A mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is again Greek god things.
Yeah.
And
And he's
then
like, I'm proud of you and whatever, but I've given you a hero's fate, and a hero's fate
yeah,
is never happy.
yeah. And then he's like, when you get home, you're gonna have a decision to make. It's only you can make it. And it's just like
Mhm.
ambiguous. And so Percy leaves. He gets back to the
Well, and
apartment.
then at the very, very end of Percy leaving, Poseidon does say something kind of sweet-ish. Sweet-ish. You are a true son of the sea god. And it's like, just a little bit. Just a little
Yeah.
bit. And then Percy gets like, people like are bowing to him as he leaves Olympus.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like a little cute.
Yeah.
It's also like, damn,
Hmm.
damn.
But he gets home and his to the apartment and his mom is there and they have this really sweet reunion.
And then
Um,
fucking Gabe.
and then Smelly Gabe comes up, but
Oh,
also
because my favorite part
mhm.
is when like they reveal how like Percy is gonna get away with being a fugitive and all this shit. Like at the
Oh
end of it,
yeah,
he's like sitting there and he's like,
on
I
TV.
just knew that when my stepdad was calling me a punk, that I was gonna be okay. Here's the number for his appliance store. I'm sure he'd be happy to give all the great people of Los Angeles a free appliance.
Which is a baller move, Percy. That's awesome. But yeah, so him and his mom are chatting in Percy's old room, which is now full of Gabe's stuff. And there's a box that was mailed, return to sender, that arrives, and it's the box that Percy had put Medusa's head in and to send to Olympus. They
Hmm.
sent it to Percy. And Percy, this is also Percy realizes that Gabe has for sure been like hitting his mom,
Hmm.
and so of course Percy's like, I would love to turn him to a statue right now, but he decides to let his mom is like, no, don't do that, like let me leave him on my own terms. and
Hmm.
Percy like listens to his mom, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go return to camp, talk soon, like etc. He returns to camp, everyone celebrating him, but they get like suddenly they get really quickly back into the routine of things. Like he has spends a couple days back at camp. A letter comes from his mom a couple days later, and his mom's like, hey, so I left Gabe, and I also sold a really my first successful
Technically,
sculpture.
what she says is Gabe's gone missing. I don't think
Oh
they're gonna
yeah,
find him.
I couldn't remember if he was missing or he just was gone. But he's like, but I sold this really successful sculpture called The Gambler to this hoity-toity arts
Poker
place.
player. The
Sorry,
poker player.
sorry. I don't know how you remember this stuff.
I don't know either, man. You
But
know how like I hung out with all your friends like for a party? I can't
uh,
remember any of their names besides Marissa. But yeah, the name of the statue, got that down.
wild. But then and she's like, she's also in that letter, she says, so now I have enough money that I can, quit my crappy job and start writing full time, and also have enough money to send you to school here in the city if you want to, you know.
And also go to college. He gets to
Mm-hmm.
go to college.
Yeah, we love that for Percy. And so also at this point, after they're settling back in, Grover leaves to go on his grand quest to go find Pan, because this
Yes.
is what he became like through this situation became able to do that. So
Yeah.
Grover leaves, and they have a sweet little goodbye. But so it's like at the end of the summer, people are getting ready to leave, and
Percy still hasn't decided
he
if
has
he's gonna
decided
stay
he
or
is still
go.
leaving.
And then
Yeah.
it's the most relatable line ever. The thing about ADHD is that deadlines aren't real until they're staring you in the face. And I was like, if that's not my entire life.
And so to kind of like focus his brain on, he starts walking around camp and he finds Luke like practicing swords battling stuff, and he's like
Yeah.
just going crazy on this dummy thing. Um and so he
And the thing is, it's also been really bothering Percy as he's sitting there and he's like, hey,
Luke hasn't talked to me this whole time.
not Luke hasn't talked to me. He sits there and he's like, betrayed by the one who calls me a friend. I
Oh
guess
yeah.
Ares did that, but like something still isn't sitting right. And I'm sitting here like, hey, remember the shoes that
Yeah.
your friend Luke
Almost.
gave to you that almost killed your friend Grover?
Huh.
I know you're 12, but come on, man.
Yeah. So Luke is like, hey, let's go hunting one last time and training out in the woods, which is
I
like,
have Coke.
yeah, I have bottles of Coca-Cola, real Coca-Cola, and it's like,
Not bottles,
or
cans.
cans, sorry. But like, what if anyone spontaneously asks you to go into the woods, like within 5 minutes of the ask? Red flag. Spontaneous with half an hour to an hour, fine. If it's within 5 minutes, you go into the woods, red flag. That's a
Hey,
survival trip.
hey, in all fairness, Percy's a dumb city kid just like me. I would not have second thought that.
Well, now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Okay. Hopefully. Anyways, they go into the woods and they like sit down for a second, and Percy notices Luke's sword, that it's half steel and half bronze, and it's this whole thing that demigods can't have weapons that can kill mortals or humans.
Well, so like more specifically, the weapons that hurt monsters don't hurt mortals.
Yes.
So Luke got this backbiter that has a side for humans and a side for celestial bronze. Demigods, of course, can be hurt by both because fuck you guys.
Yep. And so Percy's like, huh, that's odd. And he asks him about it. And Luke is like, yeah, I got it from my friend. And then essentially Luke goes and does his whole like
Villain
spills.
spiel.
Yeah, spills everything. Also he has this like creepy scorpion in his hand while he's doing it. So we find out that it was Luke that stole the lightning at the winter solstice.
Yeah.
It was Luke that helped convince Ares to go along with this plan to trap Percy down in the underworld.
And
It
Luke
was
has
Luke
been
who
working
gave him the shoes that were specifically supposed to drag Percy
him down to Kronos.
down to Kronos. Like it was Luke was behind it all, and Luke is his whole motive is that he's tired of being overlooked by the gods. He's tired of being powerless. He's tired of being stuck at this camp. He's only had one quest and they didn't give him another one.
Luke came back from his quest with his eye like almost taken out of, and he was disappointed by the quest in the first place because it's just replaying the past glories, and he thinks that the gods' time have passed.
He wants his own glory.
He wants his own glory, and he's like, it's our age now. They've only hung around this long. It's our time to overthrow them. And Percy's like, hey, that's
I'm still
up.
new. Also, you did this to me. You're not a friend. He's like, and then Luke's like, join me, Percy. And Percy's like, no, you were gonna kill me. And he's like,
and
well,
so he like poisons him with the scorpion.
The scorpion, yeah, he leaves Percy. The scorpion bites Percy. Percy's like struggling, gets in the river, kind of helps him, not really, but he essentially faints again. And he gets saved by Nectar again, by Chiron.
It's also a kind of cute little moment with Annabeth because he's like, hey, we need to stop meeting like this. Something along those lines.
Yeah. And then Annabeth tells him that she listened to Percy's idea from earlier and that she wrote a letter to her dad to reconcile over their past. And so she's not, for the first time since being at Camp Half-Blood, she's not staying for the whole year. So she's gonna leave for the school year to go and try living with her dad and the rest of his family again. And so that's when Percy decides that he too will leave and return next summer. So then he decides to go home, and that's kind of how it ends. Yeah. But
do you remember the first time you read this? How did you like react to the Luke thing?
The Luke thing, I was shocked because I was in 5th or 6th grade.
Yeah.
That's kind of my like as an adult though, it's like everything points to Luke because it has the red herring of Ares being the betrayer.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because
I can't remember what I thought because I can't remember if I was still in that phase where I read the last like page of the book before I read the whole thing. I do remember. I feel like I remember being shocked. I've gotten over that. Not the last chapter, just the last page.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, if the ending is bad, I don't want to read it. It's not worth it. Like,
but I've also come to understand as I've grown up, you don't know if the ending's bad until you've read the book.
It's true. Context is important.
Yeah.
I think it's a good ending. And for a middle grade book, I think it's really good because like it kind of, one, you have the red herring of Ares, and then two, when Percy returns to Camp Half-Blood and gets back into the normalcy of it all, you're like, oh, okay, this is the end. And it's like, psych, we have one more plot bomb to drop on you. Like,
I cannot wait to talk about the musical.
I cannot wait to talk about the movie.
I don't want to talk about the movie.
I have strong opinions that you probably don't think I have. Anyways, before we move on,
like the movie?
We have to wait till next week to find out, dear listeners and Amanda.
We're about to have words. Anyway,
wait, before. Here's some brief fun facts that Amanda probably already knows. First off, Rick Riordan was a teacher, and when he got this book publishing deal, this is when he stopped being a teacher. And he taught middle school primarily history, English, but specifically Greek. He taught a lot of Greek myths in his classes, which I thought was fun. And there's a lot of really cool resources for teachers on his website. 2, this story was inspired by his son, Haley. His son asked for bedtime stories, Greek mythology stories growing up. And over 3 days, he told, like 3 nights, he told essentially the first version of this story of a demigod. The original title of this book was called The Son of the Sea God, which is a bit on the nose.
Yeah, no, I think Lightning Thief's a better title.
I think so too.
Because especially like with the first half being like, who's Percy's dad?
Yep.
Also, didn't his son have also like have ADHD and dyslexia?
Yes,
and that was part of like his inspiration.
Yeah. It wasn't. So in the first draft of the book, it wasn't a part of it. But as he was writing the book, his son started having issues in school due to having dyslexia and ADHD, and so he decided to make it part of the book, especially since he taught middle school and he, had many students with the similar issues. So he wrote it with those kids in mind, which is again why it's so one of the reasons why it reads so easily, or accessibly, right? It's partly because it's a middle grade, but also it just not all middle grade reads easily, right?
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
bad writing, for complicated writing, etc., this just hits that perfect spot where it's
Yeah.
so
It
interesting.
flows really nicely.
It's info dense without it being overwhelming.
Well, and the info dense parts, I mean, at least speaking as a child who sometimes didn't read things super densely, like the really like dense info dumpy parts. Woo!
Yep,
And
and
it
you
doesn't
can
take a
still
long
know what's
read it.
gonna happen. Exactly.
You still know what's
Me with
gonna
the
happen.
underworld scenes.
You'll get it on the next reread. It's fine.
Yep.
This is a 5 out of 5 for me.
Absolutely. 5 out of 5. Favorite book. One of my favorite middle grade books.
This is like I think Hikey this series is high on my list of like favorite series. Just
Yes.
period.
Yes.
100%.
It's so good. But yeah. Do you have
Stay
any
tuned
last
for my top 10 favorite Percy Jackson lines from this book specifically.
what's your favorite line from this book?
I haven't made it yet, so you're gonna have to stay tuned for my top 10.
Oh, you're gonna do this for the next episode?
Yeah.
That's not on the book? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not really. I'll just do it and then like reference it as we talk about the TV show, because hopefully some of my favorite lines make it into the TV show.
I am so excited for this TV show.
I don't know how I feel. I'm like
so
excited, but I'm also like I'm so nervous because people are gonna be like really, really weird about it. I can feel
They
it
are gonna be
already.
weird about it, but guess what? To stay off the internet, they don't exist.
Yeah. I can't stay off the internet.
I mean, me neither, but I just don't look at that part of the internet.
That's true.
Except for it'll probably be on my TikTok.
Yeah.
Then I'm SOL.
I'll probably read a lot of fan fiction about it.
Love that for you.
I don't.
I mean, okay, I love that as in like a choice you're making, not as in the result. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Oh no, stay tuned for my top 10 Percy Jackson lines.
Stay tuned to find out if I love or loathe the movie next week.
I loathe it. We don't need to wait.
I know, but you gotta wait till see my opinions. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. If you have not yet already, go ahead and rate the podcast 5 stars. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a happy review. Spotify does not let you write your opinions, which is fine, I guess. Make sure you're following the Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast to make sure you're staying up on to all the exciting adventures of the Percy Jackson Spectacular Month. Thank you, Amanda, for joining me again. And
thanks for letting me talk for an hour and a half about Percy Jackson.
I know it's been such a hard moment for you, right?
So just remember, ladies and gentlemen, and those who are neither, read the book first.